Welcome to SoberSmash. SoberSmash. Get to the core issues with King Scott and Dr. Joe and get SoberSmashed.
Welcome to another edition of SoberSmash Live. Today's special guest is Eddie Schmidt. He's a member of the 100 Families here in South Florida. Now to our host, the man with the best hair in podcast, it's King Scott.
Thank you. Welcome to the show today. We're really excited, and we have a special guest co-host, Scott Jones. Jonesy, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, Scott. How you doing?
Good to see you, pal. And we have Eddie Schmidt here. Eddie, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
We're happy to have you, and we want to hear all about you and what you're doing and helping out the community and making awareness to people that really need to know what's going on and try to make a difference.
Absolutely. Awareness is huge because it offers a lot of hope as well.
Absolutely. Tell us about 100 Families.
Sure. It's just reaching out to the community, coming together of people who've lost children due to this heroin epidemic, or people that are dealing with it currently with their kids still alive. And that's with our son, Mark, who's 24, who's battling this heroin epidemic, has OD'd twice, 8 treatment centers, and still on the streets dealing with it. And so we're trying to get our voices out loud and clear.
And you know, the story that you just said about your son, we hear this so often daily from families all over the country. And it seems like, you know, wherever I'm speaking to someone, if I'm in New York or I'm in Detroit, it's always the story that we're the worst place it is for heroin. You know what? It's bad everywhere.
Yep.
It's not just here. It's everywhere.
Absolutely.
And somebody needs to get the word out there. It's got to change.
Sure. Heroin.
Because we're losing way too many people over this. And it's not just children. There's no prejudice when it comes to drugs and alcohol. Right. You know that.
I do.
And especially heroin use. It's so easily gotten. You can walk out your door, walk half mile, and you have it. And it's so cheap.
Yep.
It needs to stop.
We've nailed something. I've always said heroin doesn't discriminate.
It does not.
It's black, white, rich, poor, gay, straight, young or old. It is. It's taking everyone across the board, and it's rampant. And right here in South Florida, it's as in many other parts of the country too. But right here, it's huge. So, I mean, some of these dealers are standing right outside those treatment centers, waiting to see if they can get them back in use of it. And it's a voice that's really, really loud.
Right. Well, I'm glad you're trying to make a difference.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure you are.
Yeah, we're working hard on that, and hearing that voice. I find that with heroin, if you said that your child was in treatment center because they were using drugs or alcohol, it's one level of taboo, but heroin always had a very a stigma of a word. And to say that, we need to say it loudly because other parents are not sure. Awareness is huge. An example would be going to these meetings and hearing parents talk about little signs that were going on in their kid's bedroom with heroin, such as water bottles laying around. I would yell at our son all the time, finish that water bottle. Why are you opening 3 or 4? What are these dark stains on your bathroom counter? Why are the spoons missing? Why are the spoons bent? Why are the white caps missing? I would have never known that. I thought it was just odd. So if we can start creating awareness, getting involved in the school systems, especially because if you're starting to discover these signs at a young age, maybe we have a better chance of stopping this epidemic. But if you don't know of these signs to look for, and a year later has passed, and your child is in a full-blown addiction, even more so, even though it's addictive as quickly as it is, but you may have a better chance of trying to save their future. And as I was saying to some of your team earlier, the opiates and these painkiller problems are really a foundation of where this began. Our son at 17 had surgery, and the doctor handed him Oxycontin, and that started the addiction. And from there, it really stemmed off. So I feel that's the foundation. So if we can set control and awareness of what young people are taking or others, sports injuries, car accidents, and they're giving these out, we need to create that awareness.
So what is 100 Families doing for this right now? Tell us a little about what they're doing, the outreach program.
Outreach program, education, awareness. But, there's a lot of emotion that's put into this because when you're losing your loved one, and so that if we can take that passion and set it forward, I believe we can make a difference. And so meeting with local and state officials such as senators and congresspeople and commissioners, that sort of makes the difference, and there's amazing treatment centers that we have here in South Florida that offer the support that's needed, but there's some that have taken a wrong little path. And so if we can balance that and get that out, and I know State Rep Dave Ehrenberg has been involved, Debbie Wasserman Schultz down in Miami has been involved and met with her, Bill Nelson's getting involved. And if you think about our first election that has taken place this year, the candidates are talking about this epidemic, and we've never spoken of that before. So clearly there's a problem, but we need to make the voices louder.
I think everyone knew there was a problem. They're just starting to recognize it.
Absolutely.
And that's what it is.
Well, they're seeing the number of deaths that are happening.
Sure, and they can't get away from it.
Correct. And it's growing
it's too big.
rapidly.
It's too big everywhere.
Yeah.
It really is.
Now, if we could set the stage a little bit. Now, obviously, you're very involved with 100 Families, and you're very educated on the subject of addiction. But this isn't how everything started for you. You're not a trained professional. You didn't go into this by choice. You're a restaurant owner, and I just want to tip our hat to Table 26 for you.
Thank you.
Certainly. But can you tell us a little bit about what led you to get so involved?
This is where I try to take control. What happens is when your son's laying dead on his bathroom floor in blue, and you know there's a problem, you're not sure what's going on, and there's track marks up his arm. That's when we have to make a stance and come together. And I know how we've suffered. He's OD'd twice. He's battling it, and I don't know this will ever stop. And so when you see that happen, I find a way to heal. But it's a support group, going to a lot of Al-Anon meetings and hearing these parents and trying to have a voice, because I'm so passionate for the fact that I know it doesn't discriminate. Our young people, parents who are, I know people that are dads that are leaving their little kids behind, and it changes their whole life. And heroin, I feel, has a voice. It wants that individual that's using. But what it loves is the fact that if it accomplishes what it's going for, and it takes that child through death because of the use, then the family has to continue to live without that, knowing heroin took their child. And it seems now that it has a personality. It's growing and growing. And if I were to look at it, I almost feel it's like Linda Blair in The Exorcist, just trying to take our loved ones. And we need to come together, and we need to speak about it, because if we speak about opiates and heroin, we can make a very clear difference. This is not pot smoking in the 60s or 70s.
Right,
This is killing.
Oh, yeah.
Killing our loved ones.
You don't get a second chance usually.
You don't.
Listen, if anybody has any questions for Eddie or myself or Jonesy, please just write in right now on Facebook Live. We'll be glad to take your questions and try to put some insight really to what you're looking for. Because, a lot of people that are using have no idea what they're doing to their loved ones, to their families. I talk to parents daily about what's going on with their loved ones that are in our treatment center, our TPA, and the story's the same. No one knew what was going on. Mm-hmm. There were no signs, like you just mentioned. It's overlooked. But they don't know the heartbreak that they're going through.
Sure.
And when they know they finally get help, you know what they say? We're happy that we know where they are right now, that they're safe. They're just happy to know they're in a facility.
Yes.
They're being watched 24/7. They're getting their 3 meals. They're learning how to become sober.
Parents can go to sleep again.
They can sleep at night, and I get that every day. Thank God I can rest tonight. I haven't slept in 6 months.
Sure.
A good night.
Yeah.
And that's a typical story. So, who's out there listening, if you are using, think about the people that love you and care, because they're affected by this also. It's not just you.
Yeah, that's right. It's unconditional love.
Unconditional. And, your family member's going to love you either way. And, unfortunately, a lot of people enable someone that's using to a point where, they don't want to see you suffer. And that's another story for another show. But think about what you're doing, because you affect a lot of people. Yeah, and it's not just yourself.
And the parents, when your loved one, if it is a child or a husband or spouse, and you're on that right path to recovery, boy, forgiveness comes really easy.
Absolutely.
It comes very easy, because all you were always hoping for is for them to live their life healthy and to be the person that they're so capable of being, because this heroin is taking self-esteem and pride and delivering shame to them, and they feel that they can't get out and that they're embarrassed to go back to the family and humbly say this, but
there's nothing to be ashamed of.
There's nothing.
It's acceptable today in society. It's like to the point, hey, I went to rehab.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
You look at every actor that's out there.
I was just going to say, every Hollywood star.
My pay scale just went up because I went to rehab, and people are talking about it. Just the way it is. Listen, we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back with Eddie Schmidt. So stand by, and we'll see you in a minute.
Treatment Partners of America is a unique, state-of-the-art substance abuse facility. Our trained professionals first focus on finding the core issues in trauma that lead to addiction, with some of the best doctors, nurses, and behavioral health techs the industry has to offer. We offer personalized one-on-one therapy 5 days a week, raising the bar to a higher level of standards. Whether it's drugs, alcohol, eating disorders, gambling, sex and love addiction, or even relationship addiction, Treatment Partners of America has specialists to treat and to help heal your addiction long-term rather than attempt a temporary 30-day quick fix.
Welcome back to SoberSmash. I'm along here with our co-host for today, Jonesy, and our special guest, Eddie Schmidt of 100 Families. We're discussing what we can do to make a difference out there, get the word out there, prevent somebody from losing their life that's using heroin or any other type of drug, and making the parents aware of it and their surroundings. And this is a big issue. We have a nonprofit organization that we have at Treatment Partners that we're involved with called Sober Life Foundation. And what we do is we go around to schools, universities, religious organizations, and we basically educate everyone on what to look for and what not to do.
Absolutely.
Or if you do something, we're here to help. To let you know, do not be ashamed, like we mentioned. Don't be afraid to ask somebody for help. The biggest thing to do in recovery is to say, I need help.
Absolutely.
And I'm ready. You hear the story, oh, you got to hit rock bottom. You don't have to hit rock bottom. Because if you hit rock bottom, it's generally too late.
Sure.
So let's stop it before it gets to that point and just say, listen, I need help.
Sure.
That's it.
As a parent, when you say rock bottom, I never understood what that meant, especially in the beginning of this process of his addiction. And did it mean that we cut money off? Did it mean we kick him out of the house and say, here's a suitcase? Right. All these different scenarios that we learned in Al-Anon. But at that time, when we started going 3 years ago, this heroin epidemic has grown tremendously just in 3 years. It's grown in 24 hours.
Oh, yeah.
And so when we looked about what's tough love, what is rock bottom? Okay, when's he going to hit rock bottom? When you find your loved one ODing in that crisis, isn't that rock bottom?
What did you do, Eddie, when this happened to you? Let's talk about your personal experience.
When he first, Mark has been in our life. Mark is my partner's godson. And we adopted him just because his family demographics were not it. And at 17, when he started with this addiction, he came to us for help. And he just wanted a family. He wanted love. The self-esteem was completely taken away during his struggle, the beginning of heroin, and looking for anything. And so we came together as a family and strong. He immediately then went into his first treatment center and proceeded from there in and out. He does have a dual diagnosis for an eating disorder as well. He's bulimic. And so that discussion of his eating disorder was feeding off heroin. Loved that because it would talk to him and say, well, if we do this, then we don't need food. And so there was a balance between the two.
Right, right.
But the big struggle was when he explained to us what was going on and pulled up his sleeve, and I saw a track mark for the first time in my life. You kind of go, whoa, that's a movie. And how do we handle this? And so we immediately called and resources and got into different programs, found treatment. Many treatment centers often offer family weeks, and that was a very beginning important step for us because
Absolutely.
we could come together as a family. We didn't meet or miss one. We talked to every parent. We'd go out afterwards during these programs and really share stories. So that awareness, it was communication that was the key. And we felt that as unity. But where it started to change is when he OD'd, and our life was
what
there.
What happened after his first treatment?
After then, he went into a program out in California where it was a sober living sort of facility in IOP and went in depth. He was 1 year sober. And he then went into a lower program where he'd have to go to work. And he met a friend that just brought him back to the other side of the tracks and relapsed and ended up on the streets in Costa Mesa, California. Brought him back to home here in Florida, thinking that was the right thing to do. Right. Probably enabling, I don't know. But when you think your loved one is sitting on the street with a suitcase, what do you do from the East Coast to the West Coast? And so we brought him back home and struggled, and he continued to relapse. But boy, there's days I know he clearly doesn't want to do this. And in and out and in and out. And then he came home, relapsed again, and he was in treatment center 2 weeks ago, in which he walked out because he clearly wasn't ready. This voice of heroin was calling louder.
And this has been going on for 7 years with him.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. Can we clear something up just to be? You're not talking about somebody who was living in the streets and turned to heroin. You're not talking about somebody who was without means. You're talking about somebody who,
educated,
by all way, shape, and form, seemed like really had their life right where it needed to be.
Absolutely, and beyond. And offered education, clothes, home, shelter. Here we own a family business, get involved in the family business, go to hospitality school, learn it. Everything was given for that opportunity. And as we meet people, we see all walks of life,
right.
Whether kids have gone off to boarding school or public school, well-loved families. It's an epidemic that's taking control of everyone. This is not what you might stereotypically think of a low-income family, 2 parents missing, or any of that such. We'd go to church on Sundays. And there were times I would look and hope that Mark would meet us at church, and he wasn't there. And I would look at the front of that church thinking, the next time I'm here, am I going to be looking at a coffin? And we think about death every single day with Mark. Every day.
And I know we see that every day, and Scott will tell you about it. And I can tell you, and of course you're seeing the families, everyone's saying, why us? It shouldn't have happened to us. But I guess the message is, it doesn't matter who you are.
It doesn't matter. And again, we keep going back to education, and that's really the key. And and like you said, getting involved in the school systems through the county and the state, we need to educate parents, because as I said earlier, this is not walking by your son or daughter's room and potentially smelling something funny because it was marijuana or their eyes looked a little red. This is something that it goes unrecognizable. They can be very functional for a little bit as they start to begin this, if they're lucky enough to live.
Right. All right, I got a question here from Robert. He's asking, how did this affect your family when you first found out your son was using?
It destroyed us at first, but we had to come together, and it was an action plan. What it's done further, it's definitely put a hardship on my partner and I. Financially, we cleared out bank accounts, IRAs. In this time period, we spent everything we could, over $174,000, to get him the help he needed, because we love him.
Right.
And so financially, emotionally, there's times where Ozzy, my partner, could be stronger, and maybe I'm weaker. And that happens. There's a lot of families out right now. If they're listening, there's one parent that might be strong and there's one that's not. But don't let heroin separate the two of you. You got to get the help you need, because if you don't, then again, heroin wins. It's trying to destroy the whole family demographic.
And the destruction of the family isn't just about the addict himself. It's about the family members. And like I said, we've seen it a lot where families are torn apart by this, maybe because of blame or shame or guilt or any of those things. And I think that you keep sending the message home, educate yourself.
Sure.
Do you get to meet with families before any of this happens, or are you still at the stage where you're only meeting the families?
Unfortunately,
afterwards?
we're meeting the families afterwards to meet the families, because it's such a crisis time right now that's happening. So that seems to be overpowering as you're talking to families that are lost their children, or their children are in treatment as they speak, and they don't know what to do when they get out. And it's very interesting, because when Mark was in treatment, just recently, a couple weeks ago, we had this, we got back to sleep. We're in routine. We're happy that he was eating and safe, and we could too as well. We had such hope, but behind that hope falls fear, because you never know what's going to happen after you're 30, 60, 90 days, whatever program it might be, then goes back out into the real world. And that's the part that really struggles with the family. And when we first went to our first family week, everyone was saying, you see the words on the wall, what do you feel? And I never really understood it. until we started to involve more in this addiction, because this addiction becomes a family addiction. And I found for myself that I was beginning to be addicted to this addiction because of his care. And many times family members want to do more of the program than the addict wants to do.
Absolutely.
And that's when you have to catch yourself and go, then you're going to start to snowball. And I'm now at a stage going, I need to be stronger than that. For me, for my family, and beyond, and for Mark.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. There's also, like you just mentioned, there's boundaries. And
those are tough.
It's very tough when you're dealing with a loved one. You have to know, stay in your lane, keep those boundaries, and sometimes you have to look the other way at a point and say, you know what? You'll figure this out real soon.
Absolutely.
We're here for you, but you need to figure this out. And you just mentioned, when Mark was in his last treatment center for a week or so, he said he just wasn't ready. Mm-hmm. That's something he needs to figure out.
Absolutely.
And, he knows that you love him, and your family loves him, but he has to be ready and say, I'm willing.
That's right.
And he'll come to you and say, you know what, Dad, I'm ready.
Yeah. Love is the key. If he always hears, I love you, I cannot drive him to a meeting. I can't drive him to rehab and stay in there and make sure he's safe. Mm-hmm. But I can tell him I love him every moment I can.
Right.
It's up to him if he wants that.
Right. And it's nothing you did wrong.
Sure.
We talk to plenty of families and they're like, maybe we brought him up wrong. No, it's nothing like that.
There's not.
It isn't. It's an addiction. It's something, a disease that it's there.
Sure, absolutely.
And I wish I could put my finger on it and say, this is it, make it go away.
Yeah.
There's no quick cure. There's no magic pill. It just does not work that way.
And it takes work just as much as it is for the addict to go through the program and meetings and support groups and all that. The family has the same work to do so they can heal.
It's the old story, no pain, no gain.
Absolutely.
And that's what it is. You need to put the time into your recovery. Mm-hmm. And just because you came, to a treatment center like ours, even if you're here 45, 65 days, mm-hmm. when you walk out the door, even if you did phenomenal, you still need to reinforce it every single day of your life.
Absolutely. It's
That's
not a quick pill. No. You can't take a pill and go,
I don't care if you're in recovery 25 years. Yeah. You still need to work on your recovery every day.
Yeah.
And that's it.
If I could backtrack just for a moment, you were mentioning things like no pain, no gain, and some other things you were saying. I think one of the things that, and I as a parent of an addict myself, who thank God today is in recovery, making decisions can be very unpopular. Sometimes we just want to make them feel better for the moment, but it's hard to make the decisions where they're going to turn around and say, I hate you, Dad. I hate this and I'm never going to talk to you again, but it's the right thing to do. Talk about getting through those moments.
Sure. As you describe that, I can visualize many arguments or discussions that we've had with him where he is high, he's using. Boy, he can say things that are so painful to the heart. And you stand there and you go, how could you say this? We love you so much. And in that time, you have to realize that's not your loved one. Whatever the connection of that relationship is, that is not your loved one. It is the drug that's taking over, the effect that it has on the mind. Sure. And what they're telling you is manipulating the situation because they're trying to get something from you. One, who you are, maybe money, maybe time, maybe whatever it might be, to prolong that. And it's very, very painful when your loved one is standing there saying, I hate you, you've never done anything for me, you don't really care, you don't understand.
Right.
That can take a parent or a husband or mother or father and just stab you in the heart when you know that your child is stealing from you. When your child is, we have someone that we spoke to where the child came home to visit them from Florida to New York and stole all the family silver and some heirlooms that were passed down from generation to generation and sold it for $10 or $20 for a quick fix. They were never angry at that. They were concerned. And so, but you still can't help. You go, at one point, when does this stop? When does the abuse stop?
And those are just things. Mm-hmm. You can replace things. You're
Yeah.
not going to replace a loved one.
Absolutely.
You don't get a second act. That's it.
Yep. So you always have to, that's why forgiveness is a really strong word that comes with this epidemic or this drug.
Right. I agree.
Scott, there might be some people out there that might want to make a phone call. I mean, I think the number's on the screen, right?
Absolutely. We'll take a quick break and we'll come back and take your questions. We'll be right back. Thank you.
Welcome to Treatment Partners of America.
For me, seeing a client enter and then go through the whole program and graduate is the most rewarding feeling one could ever have.
Clients need physical, social, spiritual, mental, and intellectual knowledge.
I get to see the miracle and the change within a client from the time that they come in till the time they discharge.
We are Treatment Partners of America.
Your partner in recovery.
Welcome back to Sober Smash Live. We're here with Eddie Schmidt from 100 Families. Eddie, tell me what we can do if somebody's listening out there, they want to get involved with 100 Families.
Sure,
how do they go about it?
You can go on a website. There's social media that you can check out as well, and local organizations through your community, because you may not be that one particular program, but there's lots of task force and support groups for families that are suffering because someone's passed, and or if someone who's in the middle of the addiction. So I really think you need to do homework, and I think through this process, since it's relatively new to families, there's lots of homework to do on the web. And so shows like this create awareness, and what happens is you go to these support meetings, and I know there's so many state and county things going on, find out about those, because that's where I got to meet some of these things and heard about SoberSmash and some of these others. And so people are kind of pulling together and supporting this, so you really have to do a little bit of homework, a pinch, and once you start it, then it's going to just snowball, and you'll be able to get the help or resources that you need to get through this. But Al-Anon meetings are wonderful for those families, support groups. We've also met people through this that we've invited to our home, and we've had our own support group in just creating that awareness. I've met a mom who, her daughter, who was on the cover of Boston magazine for one of the top students in the country graduating, who ended up in a car accident, was on opiates or a painkiller, developed a heroin addiction, and her life changed from that point. She's now back on track, the daughter, working in the program, working at treatment centers and helping. So there is success. And as much as we talk about the negative of what this drug is doing, there's many success stories. And so we have to support that to know that we can keep going through with it.
Right.
Oh, absolutely. And, I know there's certainly been some press about, some of the problems with the treatment industry itself nationwide here in Florida. But there are a lot of really fantastic facilities. And you're right, there are a lot of great successes out there. You did mention over 8 treatment centers for your son. I guess the message out there is for parents who have children who have gone through multiple treatment centers.
Sure.
You'd never give up.
No.
You never give up. I mean, you certainly have to draw boundaries like Scott was saying, but you can't give up hope. How do you keep hope alive for yourself? I know that's a tough question. I'm sorry.
It's tough. Very much like the addict, the family takes it day by day. And I think that for us is where we have to go. If I start to panic about the future, then I develop anxiety and fear, and I feel like I lose it. But when you mentioned about the 8 treatment centers, and there's so many wonderful facilities here and elsewhere in this state or county, it's almost like looking at them. If you're sending your child to college, you need to get involved in the treatment center, and you need to call, make sure that they're reputable. If they're going into sober living, go visit them, look at what's going on. That's very important, because if not, what happens is during that time of crisis when you're desperate and someone says, we can help your loved one, go take them. Let's get this going. But you really got to look at it like a college or a forum, in the sense of, having those orientations and getting involved. And like I said, if they have family programs, those just help building and healing this crisis.
Excellent advice. Definitely you want to check that out. How many stories do we hear where families are not even sure exactly where their children are?
Exactly, big time.
What sober living or what treatment center, who their therapist is. Definitely we encourage families, get to know the therapist, get involved in the treatment, and help develop a treatment plan so that you're on the same page as the treatment center, as opposed to making decisions that are counteractive to what's been done.
Sure. Well, if they're in a 60-day program, you want to get involved, a couple of weeks once they get situated, speak to their counselor, because you need to look at what's going to happen after that 60 days.
Right.
What are they recommending? Do they need more recovery? Do they need a stronger IOP? Do they need a sober living facility? Is it within their community? Do we need to get them out of state? And then there's the financial part that many families have to talk about.
Sure.
And what resources there are. We know of organizations in the community that sometimes offer scholarships for those individuals that are looking for recovery, and how that can be outreached and getting some of that in the partnership. What's very interesting is on our last treatment center, unfortunately, that Mark walked out, he was responsible for his payment. And that was something that was very interesting, to hold them accountable versus us paying for it. And I thought that was a great training tool that they suggested, because they need to be held accountable for that, whether they had to pay $50 a month, $100, however long it took. It is their responsibility versus constantly playing. So there's so many different options.
Then again, for someone to do that and tell them that, you're responsible for it as a parent, then they really have to be willing.
Correct.
And
very much
then
so.
Again, if he goes in for a week and says, I'm not willing, I'm not going to pay.
That's right.
I have no intention to stay in here. So you're back to that, it's tough.
And I think an interesting thing that we saw for Mark, and I don't know if this is for many family members with their loved ones as addicts, sometimes they want the help to detox, but I think they're looking for a temporary out.
Right.
And that causes a lot of emotion with the family, because you think, they want to go get help. But really in their head, through the drug, they're looking for just a quick little time out.
I need a few days to relax.
Yes.
That's it. I need a roof over my head, people that are going to keep me on some sort of medication. And, after that, I'm gone. And I'm going to start the process over.
That plays a lot of games with us,
Of
because
course,
we're
if
thinking,
you think they're submitting to it, they're ready for treatment. And they're not. It's like a false positive.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, been there, done that.
And it's counterproductive because people need to understand this is a lifestyle change,
Mm-hmm.
not only for the addict, but for the family themselves, because everyone is affected in one way or another.
Absolutely.
Whether it's a damaged faith, a damaged trust, hope, whatever it might be. There's a lot of damage in the family, so that's got to be repaired, and it takes time.
I know one of the first questions we ask here at Treatment Partners of America is during an intake, we ask the client, do you want to be here?
Yeah.
And if somebody says to us, no, I don't want to be here, I'm going to run out the door, we don't admit them.
Yeah.
Because it's a privilege, the way we look at it, to come into our treatment center and get clean.
Absolutely.
If you're willing and able to be here and you want to be here, we will give you 110%. But if you're telling us during intake, I don't want to be here, I'm going to run out the door, I'm doing this to pacify my mother, and I can really give a damn if I'm there, do not check yourself in.
Absolutely.
You're not ready to come into the program. But if you are, we will get you sober and make your family happy. Start your life again.
Well, there's some great people here I've already met, so congratulations and good work here.
Well, good work to what you're doing. We're very impressed that you're part of this organization, and sound like a great parent, and sure there's plenty of people out there listening to what you're going through and looking for advice, knowing that they're not alone and there's something that they can do to make a change, and you're doing the right thing.
Absolutely.
So we're really proud. Thank you for being a guest today.
Thank you very much. Everyone's got to keep talking about it.
You've been sober smashed, and we're happy.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Eddie.